Thanatar Siege Automata. Welcome, gentle listener, I am Baldermort, your faithful servant, and I wish to introduce you to the forces, factions, and faces of the Warhammer 40K setting, the grim darkness of the far future, where there is no time for peace, there is only time for war. And today, we shall be taking a brief look at one of my favorite units of all time. A thing I saw when at a salute convention. I instantly fell in love. You see, at that time, I did not even look at the Forge World models, never permitted myself to even look on the website, because when it comes to models and armies, my eyes are definitely bigger than my stomach, or my checkbook at that time. Then the Horus Heresy was released in plastic, and at a far more achievable cost. So I built myself an Iron Warriors army, thank you my patrons, which I now play as often as my schedule permits. Yet, even then, I secretly wanted to include one of these terrible big boys in my army. And wonder of wonders, it was possible. And so, I did. And this wretch has become one of the mainstays of my force, because it does exactly what it says on the tin. It is a siege automata, and by Perturabo's iron breeches, it is exactly what you need when you're about to hit entrenched enemy lines. But I get ahead of myself. The format will be, as usual, a wee tale to show, not just tell, how the terrible beasties work in reality. Then onto the lore of the unit, then summing up at the end. So, let us proceed. Story continued from Ulik the Unreasonable playlist. From the Bold Library. Nostalgia. I, Tarax Antarax, have to admit that I don't enjoy reunions. Lots of puffed-up egos, preening, slander, bickering. It's all pointless. It's why Ulik and I always got on. We only spoke when there was something to say. Hexamon was always a bit more wordy. Emperor's children. He liked the sound of his own voice. Well, before his situation changed. But even so, he was more pointed than most, more tolerable than any others. But I also have to admit that I am looking forward to this particular reunion, one I have arranged for a certain small outpost world that needs to be removed. Ulik is thorough, you see, as much as I am myself. It's the only way to run a war, really. Oh, the charges and screaming, bashing in skulls and vaporizing people is all well and good, where the blood is high and you're standing on a mountain of dead slain by your own hand. But those are the glory moments. That isn't the war. Battles are not wars. And when it comes to wars, I am pretty darn good at them. It's all about bringing the right cudgel to smash the right heads, really. Which means you have to get your grocks in a row before you fire the first shot. There will always be moments when chaotic ambushes or turns in fortunes mean that you have to get in there and break things personally. But if you are doing it right, these are few and far between. And I have brought exactly the right nutcrackers for this particular fray. This outpost is protected by the forces of the corpse god, as some like to scream. Old golden boy sycophants is how I put it, because I recall him in his prime. But he's dead, really. We all know it. They refuse to see it, but we know. He can be claimed to be sitting on a throne on Terra as much as they like, but he's gone. All that remains is a skeleton and his psychic power, and in front of me are some of his mewling weaklings. Tempestus Scions, or some other gaudy epithet. When did they become so stupid in their naming conventions? Scions indeed. They call themselves the elite, but I'd wager a single regiment of Solar Auxilia would tear them a new one. Besides the point I get. They sit behind their walls with their slightly oversized las guns, taking potshots at our ranks. Extreme range. They do nothing. They must believe we are scared of the assault. What an insult. We are hanging back to watch. And there it is. The landers come down, and out walk a dozen or so of my favourite toys. Mechanicum all in black behind their wall of metallic hate. A reunion indeed. As I reintroduce the so-called warriors of the Imperium with the pride of the Legio Cybernetica. I am told none who now breathe have witnessed their power. So this is going to be side-splittingly funny, as Hexamon would say. And they march. With their little people behind them all controlling, a line of them strung out equidistant, so any mistakes do not consume more than the one who had an accident. But that doesn't happen. There will be no errors today. They walk ponderously but purposefully forward, into the shower of light that comes from the defences. Las gunfire sears the air, but none of it impacts. The atomantic shielding lights up like eggs of invisible force, as the Thanatars appear more like tanks walking through rain. One shield does go down under concentrated las cannon fire, but they can barely scorch its armour before the shield goes back up. And then the Thanatars are in range. As one, the massive plasma mortars on their shoulders all swing down and lock into firing position. And as each of the huge robots moves forward, huge balls of plasma sail from their lines into the fortifications. Plas steel and rockcrete melts and sizzles. Pillboxes are hit, smashing everything around them, but they provide no real protection. Those structures, not melted, have every gap or slit used as an ingress point for the plasmatic fiery death. Fire burning into the bunkers, vaporizing everything inside. And then the Thanatars get in close. All 12 smash into the curtained wall and use their graviton rams to bring it down. It takes less than 2 minutes of them all pummeling the walls before they go down in huge breaches. And with that, the outer defences are broken. I hear my men cheer as they raise their bolters into the air, attaching their chain bayonets, and then charge to the breach. Within hours, we will be in total control of this place. I will leave a small garrison, mostly servitors and scum. Then, we move on to the muster. Despite it all, I will enjoy this one reunion myself. It has been a long time since we three spoke face to face. Ulik will put on a display, for the others, of course. But I do look forward to seeing him again. He always made me laugh. Ah, the Thanatar, how I adore thee. It's beefy, more than one can imagine. Not the size of a knight, of course, but this bad boy makes a Leviathan look like a squat next to a space marine. They are utterly adorable, towering over supporting troops, firing directly over rhinos and other smaller vehicles if required. They lumber into battle with all of the force of a tsunami. Perhaps I have been inordinately lucky with mine, in all but one battle, of course, but I consider him an auto-pick most of the time, because they are so entertaining. With atomantic shielding and a weapon that is just too much fun to fire. Even when it scatters back into your own lines, it is a laugh a minute, and a magnificent centerpiece to any army of low to moderate size. But again, I am getting ahead of myself. Let us discuss the base lore first. Fielded in the Legio Cybernetica, a huge wing of the Mechanicum who controlled entire phalanxes of combat robots. I have covered this in more detail in a previous video, links will be in the description. The Thanatar's design is a bit of an oddity, as its provenance is not entirely certain. Many battle automata, meaning huge robots of war, were patterns that came from the dark age of technology, only some being designed and put into the field during the Great Crusade, as either more standard template constructs were found, or adjustments were made to existing patterns. For back then, technological innovation was not as harshly punished as it is now. The universe was different. The Emperor walked among his people, and his mere presence, his status as the Omniscire, meant that the tech priests of Mars, the Mechanicum, were not nearly as backward and regressive as they are today. Although that old refrain is not really as strong as it was, now the Belisarius Call exists. But let us not get bogged down. The Thanatar was an incredibly heavy design, with a massive adamantic shielding coming from its adamantic engine. Thus, they had a force field on top of their durable armor and a massive shock-resistant frame. Why was it made so sturdily, though? Because of the sheer shock of firing such heavy weaponry, of course. And what weaponry it has. It has a twin-linked Mauler bolt cannon. And you have to love this name, because again, it does exactly what it says on the tin. It mauls. More robust and deadly than a heavy bolter, firing larger and more dense shells that contained even more explosives. Being hit by one of these would blow near anything to bits. Well, anything not trapped inside a Land Raider at the least. And even if one got in close, it was still not a happy place. For the Thanatar has a graviton ram as its main melee weapon. Imagine a set of knuckle dusters that have the ability to emit close-range graviton waves that crush rock, flesh, and even steel. Truly hilarious. For these weapons are a threat to anything sizable, whilst simply obliterating any infantry it is used on. Gorgeous. But of course, this is not all. For now, we get to its primary weapon. And we have two forms, well, three really, as there were other variants of the Thanatar. Which reminds me, I really do need to get at least one or two of the other versions. The first was a Thanatar Calyx, which touted a Solex pattern heavy las cannon. Just imagine a las cannon, then increase it to a large enough size for a bigger robot than a Leviathan dreadnought. Now that is immense. And it put out tidy firepower, I can tell you. With one shot of this weapon, a Land Raider or even Spartan could be wiped out. They were a danger to even knights, smashing down void shields with their concentrated fire, then burning through the armoured plating below. If fired upon anything less than a Lord of War, instant termination. Because it was designed to not just gun down people on the battlements and parapets of besieged fortifications. It was specifically wrought to slice straight through them. If aimed at a keystone region of a curtain wall, that wall would be coming down. Oh yes, it would. The weapon itself was thought to be designed by the Myrmidon and Omega Shevar covenants of the Ordo Reductor, but I will not get sidelined on the politics with Riser that this created, as it's only a quick bite today. Yet this is not my favourite pattern, for that is the base pattern, the Thanatar, and it is armed with a Helix Plasma Mortar. And this is a hilarious weapon to use on the tabletop, I can assure you. Because it fires a huge ball of plasma that rolls into an area and burns everything. And I mean everything. If a bunker is hit, the energy will not only melt everything there, but will flow through every crack, nook and cranny that the defense has, wiping out pillboxes and burning everything inside. Now there was the Synex pattern as well. This was equipped with the pride of Riser, the Sinus pattern plasma ejector. Yet, it was not balanced well in its power relays, and they often went boom. The armor, shielding, and sheer robustness of the frame of the Thanatar meant that any small arms fire would simply be ignored, hardly ever penetrating the shields, let alone the armor. Yet, if the Thanatar did get hit hard enough, did get destroyed, then their atomantic engines would cook off like a mini nuke, vaporizing everything for yards around them. Yet, like all of the battle automata, they're rarely seen in numbers anymore. But I want to talk about the Thanatar's plasma mortar more, so let us move back to that, because its discharge is so huge that it covers entire meters in a ring. When I use it in games, I get to whop out my template and cover entire units of Space Marines. The sight of it smashing through the air and hitting Astartes and burning them all is a sight to see indeed. And even more hilarious is if I miss and catch my own men. There is a reason I play Iron Warriors. They are for dying. They do their job, and that is that. And I truly do channel Perturabo, or even Tanax Antarax when I play them. I care not how many die. I just want victory. And yes, these horrible, horrible automata are now coming out in plastic, which is the best news I've had this year in gaming. For as I stated, I adore them so much. And the thought of starting a proper Mechanicum army did not appeal before, as I hate resin. But now, I am stoked. Now all I have to do is save for them, and in the midst of the line troops, the large automata and a few towering knights which I already own, I shall have a veritable anchor of these horrors to smash down my foes. And I simply cannot wait to show you when they are bought, made, and then done. I have been Baldermort, your faithful servant. Hit like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and thank you for your precious time. Now, no matter what you do today, do try to make some time for fun. Toodaloo.